to the Prophecy Club. You know, what we do here, this is not a game. I mean, you and I are in a really serious business. The business of soul winning, the business of informing people, business of getting people out of hell and into heaven. So what we do, what we say is really important. We have to do it right. We have to make certain it's correct, okay? I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to answer it. Then we're going to go to the point of today's broadcast. First question is, so why is it so important that the listeners that are listening to this program right now, why is it so important that you make absolutely certain of what you believe, that you are correct in what you believe? Why is that so important? Why is it so important, for example, specifically, that you know and understand the truth about things like, for example, the American holidays? One of the things that Betty Stevens said to me that when I interviewed her that has stuck with me, when she said that she was in hell, she said that many people kept telling her, go back and tell them don't come down here, don't come down here. And I've heard that actually from several people that have given testimonies of going to hell. It's saying that we all go to heaven or go to hell by our choices. Now, okay, intellectually we know that, but do we really know that? So as Christians, and if we have people that are listening that are not Christians, you have to understand that your choices send you to heaven or send you to hell by choosing which God you serve or not to choose a God. Your choices make all the difference in the world, and we make those choices based upon the information we have up to that point. That's the reason it's so important for everyone to have this information concerning the holidays, specifically the fact that a lot of the American holidays are really occultic in their origins and the things that they do. So that's the reason we're going to continue listening to 4 different DVDs. What's Wrong with Halloween by Dr. Jack Clooney. Tell you more about these at the end of the program. Occult Holidays Revealed by Stephen Dollins, ex-Satanist high priest, Under the Spell of Harry Potter, his book, and today's program, Doc Marquis in America's Occult Holidays.
Now, the Celtic people, they were so fierce and so barbaric that twice they held off the famous Roman legion and extracted heavy tribute from Rome itself. They literally held all power from 900 BC to approximately 900 AD in that area. The Celtic Lord of the Dead, Samhain, is just another name, Samhain, for Nimrod. You study all the myths, all the occult myths of Samhain. He is also a stag god. Has horns just like the stag god of the occult world that is so constant. But this particular time of the year, October 29th through the 31st, those 3 days constitute what's known as Samhain. Everyone thinks Halloween is just a one-night thing, October 31st, but it is not. See, in the occult world, this is a 3-day fire festival. It lasts from the 29th through the 31st. During the time when the Druid priest held power in Great Britain, now the Druids held all power. You couldn't get married without their permission. You couldn't hold any type of official title in the clan without their permission. You couldn't even attend any of their religious ceremonies without their permission. They literally held power over all life and death, and you're really going to find out how in this example. During the nights of Samhain, the Druids would gather at these giant megalithic stone circles. One of the most common known stone circle is, of course, Stonehenge. Just about everyone has seen Stonehenge at one time or another, be it in picture or if they were actually there. Now, Stonehenge, as I said, it's a megalithic crop circle. Megalithic crop circle. That's the UFOs. Wrong subject, but we could always get there. This is a megalithic stone circle. It served 3 specific functions. First of all, it was a temple complex. Second of all, it served as an astrological observatory. Third, it served as a place of human sacrifice. Archaeologists have already unearthed, underneath Stonehenge, over 4,000 human skeletal remains. And that's just Stonehenge. There are hundreds of these throughout the British Isles. This one, believe it or not, is small compared to some of the others. The one in Avebury is over a mile in circumference. This is just a small one. And there's over 4,000 dead human sacrifices underneath it. You multiply that by X amount of hundreds of these stone circles, and I think you'll understand what the Druids were all about and why they were so greatly feared by the common folk. During the time of Samhain, the Druids, in this example, they would meet at Stonehenge. They had a giant cauldron, a black pot, that they would fill with what you would best understand as an apple cider-like substance. They would light the pot, and then all the Druid priests would go out throughout the countryside. They would go to various mansions, to castles, to people of nobility such as the earls, marquis, dukes, what have you. They would walk up to the front door of these places, and you want to know what they would yell out? Trick or treat, exactly. Now see, trick or treat is a two-part expression that literally sent waves and waves and waves of panic throughout the people who ever heard it. You see, if the Lord of the Manor cooperated with the Druids, he would take one of his own servants or one of his own household members, someone of his own family, and pass them over to the Druids to be used as a human sacrifice offering that night. The Druids would leave you a treat for your cooperation. They would take a pumpkin that was previously hollowed out and filled with human fat. They would leave it on the front doorstep and light it. This served as a water protection from all the demonic forces that would be unleashed that night. Now this is where we get into the trick. If you did not cooperate with the Druids, they would take blood from a dead body that they had actually been dragging around and paint the six-pointed star with a circle around it. This is known as a hexagram, from the Latin hexer for six. This is the foulest, the most evil of all the symbols in the occult world. I don't care what anyone else tells you. You need that symbol if you're going to summon a demon to this plane of existence. The Druids would paint that in human blood on the people's front door. Someone would die between those nights because of the demonic forces that were summoned. 4 or 5 hours later, the Druids would all return, in this example, as I stated, back to Stonehenge. Once they got back to Stonehenge, they would take these people and put them in these cages. One particular cage is of great interest. They would take those wicker reeds. Remember how we had talked about those before, how the Easter egg landed in wicker? And it's a very, very durable material. What the Druids would do a week before Samhain began, they would send the Celtic warriors out throughout the countryside where they would gather up thousands of these wicker reeds. Once they brought them back, they formed a giant wicker man. The wicker man looked something similar to this. It stood approximately 25 to 30 feet in height and was just intercrossing wicker reed to where it formed the effigy of a human man. This would usually be 2 to 3 levels in height and have cages running throughout it. The Druids, once they brought back all the human sacrifice offerings from trick-or-treating, they would throw them into those cages and tie them. Now, if by some chance they ran out of space in the wicker man, they had these regular square cages made out of wicker that they had set aside just in case. Now, this is where the Druids now would have their version of fun. They would take approximately 12 prisoners, 12 people now who were going to be used as human sacrifice offerings, and line them up in a single row in front of that cauldron. They would take an apple, throw it into the cauldron, and say, if you can take that in between your teeth on the first try, you will be set free immediately. Who would do that? Raise your hand. Who would try to grab that apple in between their teeth so that they could be set free? Who would do it? Raise your hand, please. There's only one problem, though. That cauldron has been boiling away for 4 to 5 hours now. The boiling temperature of liquid is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, who would do it? No volunteers? You? You know, you'd be the only one then who would have a chance of living. You see, if you didn't try for it, you were going to end up as a human sacrifice offering anyways. This was your only way out. Every single person there did take the chance, except with dire consequences, let's face it. After they plunged their heads into that boiling liquid, their faces, their neck, and I don't even know how much of their chest and back, literally was just melting to where they would be permanently disfigured and unrecognizable. Many of them went blind because of the 212-degree liquid that was burning their eye sockets away. Many end up as partially or permanently deaf because of the damage that was done to their ear canal and the damage that was done to their speech and to their respiratory system because all that liquid was funneling down their throats while they were trying to grab that apple. And yes, this is where you've got that cutesy little game, bobbing for apples. Now, if you did grab that apple on the first try in between your teeth, they held to their promise. They let you go. Some life afterwards. But if you didn't do it, they would throw you on the ground and behead you right there on the spot. Samhain is the highest night of human sacrifice on the Illuminati's calendar. And the reason it is because this is, at this time of the year, what's known as a crossroad. It ends the old year and begins the new one. Now, all crossroads in the occult are sacred. Another example would be where the beach begins and where the beach ends and the ocean begins. That's a crossroad. That's considered a sacred spot. All crossroads are sacred. Now, during this time of the year, it is believed that those souls that had died from who knows how long ago, because the veil that's separating the third and fourth dimension are supposed to be at their thinnest, those departed souls can cross over and visit their loved ones for the night. But nothing guaranteed that these spirits would be benevolent. In order to keep these spirits in line, the Druids came up with these hideous masks and decorated their robes with all types of occult symbols to control these demonic spirits, if you would. And you know, this is where you get your costumes for trick-or-treating from. Let's face it comes straight with the mask and the outfit to this very day. And yet, we've allowed this into the church. I mean, be honest, people, before God right now, be honest. How many of you have ever gone to a Halloween party at a local church? Raise your hand. Be honest here. There's nothing wrong with it, I mean, as far as being honest goes. Now, the thing is, and I'm going to hear so much for what I'm about to say. But then again, let's face it, a lot of time the truth just isn't popular. Those people who go to a Christian church and have a Halloween party, they're open hypocrites. That's exactly what they are. And that's a tough thing for a lot of people to swallow. Because this is a fun thing. This is supposed to be nothing but fun. And yet, you know, there's actually a group that's actually worse than that. Many of the Celtic people, those in the tribes and the various clans, could not attend the Samhain festival and a lot of these religious holidays because of the distance that they lived away from these temple complexes. What they did, they would hold the exact same ceremony, except the Druid priests weren't able to preside over it. Instead of calling it Samhain, those Celtic warriors called it a harvest festival. Now, how many of us have ever gone to a church where there had been a harvest festival? Those people doing the harvest festival, they're the closet hypocrites. I mean, bad enough being open about it, but being a closet hypocrite about it, I mean, really. But that's exactly what's going on. We've given it this wonderful Christian air. We've even gone so far as to tell the kids, it's okay if you wear a costume that has Moses or Ruth or Mary or whoever. It is not all right. When the Bible said, learn not to do the way of the heathen, do you think God was just taking up space? We have got to make up our minds one way or the other to commit ourselves for Christ or not to. Those are the only two choices we have. Because when you look at the 3rd chapter of the book of Revelation, it talks about a curse that's upon our church age, and that's known as the Laodicean church age. The Laodicean Christians, for the most part, are just lukewarm at best. And those are fence walkers. A fence walker is just walking the mark, and he's not committing one way or the other. How can God bless a person who won't make up his mind one way or the other? This is what it comes down to. And didn't Hosea himself say that my people die for a lack of knowledge? Well, I think we're getting a fair amount of knowledge right now, but the question is, what are you going to do with it? This is what you have to ask yourselves. And as I said before, this is not a popular topic of discussion. Let's face it. How many of us have gone out? We've celebrated Christmas. We've gone Easter egg hunting, many of us. Halloween, harvest festivals. And trust me, I'm not done yet. But this is popular stuff. But since when did Christ tell us we're here for popularity points? We're not here for that reason. We're here for one and only one purpose, and that's to fulfill the Great Commission. To go out there, preach the gospel of salvation, and get these people saved. But how is that going to be possible if our own houses need to be cleaned up? We want God to shed His blessings from on high. We want God to use us. How can we honestly expect God to do that if we're doing the exact same thing the heathens are doing? In the occult world, nothing has changed. And this is more than 5,000 years old. And if my pastor, Bruce Wilson, was here right now, he would be looking at me and wondering what's getting into me. See, I have a deadly fear that one of these days God may call me into, the ministry to become a preacher. No. My gift is in teaching, and I'm just praying God never does that to me. Don't get me wrong. Preachers are some of the nicest people on God's earth. You should make a friend of them. But it just isn't my gift. It really isn't. But the truth is, really, how are we ever going to be used of God if we don't clean up our own houses first? There is just so much that we would love to blame other people for doing. Oh, do you see what that person has done? Oh, don't go near. My children can't play with that girl because her parents or her does this and that. I think we should start pointing the finger here first. Christ said, don't worry about the little sliver or the mote that is in their eyes. Worry about the 4x4 that is in yours right now. Then you'll be able to see spiritually to help them. Now, what could possibly be so harmful or occultic about St. Valentine's Day? It's a day set aside for lovers, isn't it? That's what it's known as. It's the holidays of lovers, correct? If you recall, remember how I told you, Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz, they were the first family of the occult. The occult beliefs did not change. All that happened when it went to the next culture, just the names changed. The beliefs remained the same. If you go back, you can actually trace all this stuff. Now, with Valentine's Day, notice how this is exactly 13 days after the human night sacrifice of Imbolc. This is nothing but a complete camouflage for an ancient fertility ritual. Now, how many of us have seen this cute little boy before? It's a little difficult to see, but this is Cupid throwing an arrow at his victim known as Psyche. See, Cupid, according to all the legends, he was not a bare-bottomed little cherub just shooting arrows. He was a troublemaker. He got in trouble with the gods themselves, And he himself, as I said it, boy, did he get into a lot of trouble. But Cupid, if you check this very carefully, according to the legends, was the son of Venus. Originally, his name was Tammuz. Remember, he's the son of Semiramis. Venus, originally, is the daughter of Jupiter. Well, Semiramis was the wife of Nimrod. Now, this here is the famous rendition that's known as the Venus de Milo. It was found in Milo, Italy. This is the fertility goddess. This is the big brouhaha, what St. Valentine's Day is also about. It is nothing but the reenactment, as I stated, of the ancient fertility rites. Because, continuing on, you find out, Jupiter himself, according to all the myths, was the head god of the pantheon. He was the sun god. Nimrod of Babylon was declared to be the sun god. And if you notice, once it got into Egypt, what was Ra known as? The sun god. It didn't change. Only the names did. That's it. And during this festival of Valentine, there would be a lot of drunkenness going on. There would be sexual orgies going on. And the two most famous sacrifices that people would bring to the temple, to the goddess, was sweets such as candies and spring flowers. And isn't that what we're doing to this very day? How many of those candy stores are making a killing, let alone the floral shops? This is the exact recreation of that ancient fertility ritual. And mind you, back then they had a symbol that they used for this ceremony, and it was the human heart. The reason it was the heart was because the heart represented the seat of all emotions, including love. And to this very day, we will reenact this ancient occult ceremony, and we won't even think twice about it. Now, this one is one of my favorites. Groundhog's Day. What could be so occultic or harmful about a groundhog? First of all, groundhog is celebrated on the night of what's known as Imbolg and the occult. It's the night of human sacrifice. But did you know that the groundhog has great metaphysical powers? He can divine the future. You take this creature, you hold him up in the air, you look down. If his shadow is there, you're going to have a long winter. Well, if you're still holding him up there and you look down and there's no shadow, he's your friend now because you're going to have a short winter. This cute little fellow that they're constantly using every year that you see on TV, that's Punxsutawney Phil. Punxsutawney Phil has the ability to tell not only the future, but the weather better than the weatherman. By the way, how many of you had ever seen that movie, Groundhog's Day? You want to talk about reincarnation and what it's all about? The groundhog is the perfect representation of the spring goddess. We're going to do a comparison in a minute. But over here, we see a young maiden, a mature woman, and an old lady. These three ladies represent the three stages of the Earth Mother's life. She comes in as a young maiden. May 1st, she matures into the Earth Mother, and around October, she goes into what's known as the old crone. This is what's known as the maid, the mother, and the crone. This represents the three facets of the Earth Mother. When we take a look at the groundhog and compare it to the Earth Mother, you're going to find that there is no difference. You see, the Earth Goddess, when her time is over and the stag god comes in, she goes into the earth and sleeps until the spring. Isn't this what the groundhog does? He goes into the earth and he hibernates. The Earth Goddess is sleeping in between two specific periods of time, winter and spring. Isn't that exactly what the groundhog is doing? Work with me here. Nod, yes. Don't force me to get desperate. The goddess is known as an earth creature. This is why she is referred to as the Earth Mother. Isn't the groundhog also an earth creature? The Earth Goddess will only begin to reawaken during springtime. That's when she begins to come back into power. That's when she begins to come back as that young maiden. Isn't that when the groundhog also begins to come back? The goddess completes the cycle of the year, or what's also known as reincarnation. Isn't that what the groundhog is doing? And the Earth Goddess, every year, she represents rebirth and renewal. And this is exactly what the groundhog represents. Can you see, when you take them and compare them side by side, step by step, all the way through the belief system, that there is no difference? This is why groundhog became an American holiday, because it was an occult one first. And all that they did as usual was Americanize it and put it right on your calendar. Mind you, right on the human night sacrifice of what is known in the occult as Imbolg. Now this next one, again, it seems harmless on the surface. How many people, of course, have ever heard of May Day? Of course. Now, May Day itself, on the surface, again, it looks harmless. A lot of people just think it's another time just to come together, share some old times with some old friends, do some dancing, some drinking, what may not. We look at the top of this particular transparency. What are those people doing? They're dancing around the maypole. But what people, first of all, don't realize, you see, first of all, this is on May 1st, what's known as Beltane. Let me explain Beltane to you. B-E-L, or what's known as Baal. You will find the word Baal and Bel in the Bible, both of them. Constantly throughout the Old Testament, where God told you not to have anything to do with Baal worship. Baal worship is the recreation in the occult now of certain fertility rituals. Remember, Baal, this is just, again, another countercultural name for Nimrod. He had many names as it spread throughout different cultures. Now, I'm going to, once again, I'm going to try to put this as tactfully as I can. But you've got to know the truth about this. That maypole is nothing but a phallic symbol. It's for this reason that the people on the ground are dancing around in that familial circle again. It represents the female reproductive organs. This is a mating fertility ritual. You will notice, now those streamers that are coming down are usually a good 6 feet in length. Most of the time it's red and white, though other people will do different colors, but that's okay. Because the men, they're dancing around in a clockwise fashion. That's known in the occult as widowshins. The women, they're dancing in the counterclockwise fashion, which is known as dielso. And if you notice, because of this, those ribbons are intertwining, correct, around the maypole. This shows the unification of the sexual organs and the act of procreation itself. That's all that May Day is.
I'm going to interrupt the broadcast right there, but I'm also going to tell you that this is one of our best offers. It's called the Halloween gift offer. You get 3 DVDs and a book valued at $100 for $30. That's for $30 for 3 DVDs and a book. First one is What's Wrong with Halloween? Dr. Jack Clooney, a ranking authority on Satanism, witchcraft, white supremacy, and other forms of cult and occult activity. He has assisted the FBI, CIA, OSI, Border Patrol, Sheriff in several occult-related crimes, ordained Baptist minister, expert witness in court proceedings. You'll learn street-level spiritual warfare from a man of God who walks it every day. Second, Occult Holidays Revealed. Stephen Dollins, an ex-Satanist high priest of the Church of Satan, reveals the origins behind Christmas, Easter, Halloween. Easter is actually celebrating the birth of Ishtar. Halloween is a celebration of Samhain, the Celtic lord of the dead. The third DVD is America's Occult Holidays. Marquis was raised in a cultic Illuminati family. He attained the rank of third-degree Master Witch. His family was in the Illuminati for 7 generations. That's 189 years. Doc says Christmas is an ancient occultic ceremony dedicated to the birthday of Tammuz. Easter's shifting date is determined by astrology. Halloween is the deadliest holiday in human history. You'll learn the truth about occult practices like bobbing for apples, trick-or-treat, jack-o'-lantern, May Day, and a lot more. And the book Under the Spell of Harry Potter. Stephen Dollins, an ex-Satanist high priest, shows you how the Satanists use Harry Potter as a recruiting tool. It actually teaches your children to cast spells, use potions, curses, and there's no difference between good and evil. It indirectly prepares children to receive the mark of the beast. 3 DVDs and a book valued at $100, all available for a gift of just $30. And if you order by Friday, October 21st, you'll get it before Halloween. It's the Halloween gift offer. 3 DVDs and a book valued at $100 for a gift of $30. 785-266-1112 or prophecyclub.com. It's the Halloween gift offer. Prophecyclub.com. 785-266-1112. Order today.